to wear it for that one thing.
No. I've actually never done that. Like, I would never do that. I think that's dodgy as. I
Yeah.
definitely do get a lot of stuff online though. But anyway, we're live, so we'll just keep. Don't
We're
need to
talking
bother
about,
everyone with that.
online retail, folks. And in fact, this is actually significant because I had this conversation actually at the event I saw you at. We're talking
Mhm.
about personal branding and
Yeah.
how sort of everyone probably needs like a makeover. Like basically an independent stylist to essentially give you some tips as to what you should wear, how do you look on camera, how do you improve. Obviously, everyone can improve, right?
Like, please
Um,
don't have that. Like, I need someone to tell me what to wear because all I do is wear black because that's all I can do. I
and you
can't
know
think of
what?
anything else.
Is that a defensive move, Jess? It's like no one can criticize a black raw sort of
Like,
yeah, turtleneck. Let's just roll that out.
it's like
I'm
there's
the
nothing
same,
else.
like basic shirt and a blazer. Like what can you say? But it's not particularly interesting, so I might need to do something like this.
Well, I
Anyway,
can find
folks,
someone.
we'll talk. Do you want us to run a kind of a sartorial version of Brain Food Live? We literally get a bunch of stylists to come in and say, how do you improve on screen? Because I think the digital body language is going to be a thing that's going to be important. A lot of us show up not looking great, including, by the way, people at the leadership level. I have to say, people at leadership of department, they're the ones that actually often have the worst digital body language. I think it's because no one tells them.
Like, they're
There's
wearing
a
caps. Like, I'm sorry, if you're wearing a cap digitally, I'm like, what are you doing? That for me is like, please don't.
I'm even talking about camera angles and I'm talking about, bad lighting in the back, like basics. And I'm thinking, wow, probably this person, because they're so senior, they can just roll over everything. But they could someone should tell them, basically. Quite right, Nicola. Positioning camera and so on. Anyway, folks, Brave Food Live on air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. And today's no different. Would you believe it's the end of January? The clock is ticking on the year already. One of the 12 months down, we're into February soon. All right, we've got a brilliant show ahead of us today. We're going to be talking about 6 AI usage frameworks for talent acquisition. This show just went out, so it completely blew up. Hundreds of people signed up for it. I think it is because it hits on, resonates with the audience. Like, what are the frameworks that big corporates are using to better understand how humans and AI can interact? And can we apply any of those to talent acquisition? So the person who basically inspired this topic was Suren Winter. He's going to come on the show and talk to us about it. Myself, Jesse, and Katerina, who I think is in the chat, are going to come on and essentially join the discussion on Suren's points and see whether, how practical and feasible some of these tips might be. So that's the topic of the show. I hope you're going to enjoy this one. Okay, before we go, let's do some sound checks. Folks, if you're watching this on Crowdcast, let me know whether the audio and visual is fine. We should also be broadcasting this live on LinkedIn. I think a number of people are watching it on my LinkedIn. I think Suren is also broadcasting this on his LinkedIn as well. If you're watching this on any of those LinkedIns, do let me know whether the audio and visual is fine. Rob, of course, always broadcasting. Thank you very much, Rob Walker.
And also, should be, if it worked, should be streaming as well to mine.
Are you doing it, Jesse? Let me
I
just
am.
see whether you
It
are.
tells me Restream told me it was connected, so I believe it.
Brilliant. All right. So all of Jesse's fans, if you're watching this on Jesse's LinkedIn, please say hello. Okay, a few people are saying good. That's good stuff. All right, brilliant. Quickly, sponsor message, folks. Today's sponsor is actually one of our new sponsors. I think we haven't had this company sponsor us, at least not on Brain Food Live before. Delighted that this is happening today. It is, of course, our friends at Juicebox. Juicebox AI. They are probably one of the very first companies to have produced an AI sourcing agent. And you should check them out if you are looking for a smarter way to find candidates. They're sort of built by a German guy, actually, called David Paffenholz, a really nice guy. Hopefully, he'll be joining us a little bit if he wakes up in time. He's in California right now. But if he's around, he might just drop in and say hello. But do check out juicebox.ai if you are on the market for a sourcing tool using agentic AI. It is one of those products that does seem a little bit magical. So give it a shot if you want to know more. I do believe, by the way, there's a free trial on the link I've just shared, and you can also get a Brain Food discount if you use the coupon Brain food 15. So 15 is a clue for you how much you get off. Okay, check it out, folks. Right, we have Jesse Shofi here. Jesse, wonderful to see you as usual. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do, my dear?
Thanks for having me again, Hung. I'm always excited to be hosting with you because these sessions are always so great. Who am I? I am the founder of Stacked HR Technology Database. You may have heard of it before. I basically try to make the market a little bit less noisy, bringing all the technology products that serve the HR and TA space into one easy to navigate database. So check it out if you want to. There's lots of products on there, makes it easy, and you don't have to like jump into any sales cycles to look around as well. And we also run a whole bunch of sessions over on Luma on, how to use different, AI products. And we're doing more webinars this year actually as well. And I saw some people in the audience came to one this week. So thank you for joining the session. If you came about N8N for HR this week, that's great. And yeah, I'm just excited about this topic. I think we're at a really amazing point in history actually with what's going on. And we have such an amazing chance, especially with HR and TA, the functions to really reinvent how we do things and really show up differently. So I love these discussions. So thank you again for having me.
Yeah, brilliant to have you on the show, Jesse. And yeah, you got a job as well, don't you? You got to talk about the newsletter that we wrote last week. So anything interesting in that? What would you like to have a quick chat about?
I absolutely love the newsletter this week. There was lots of things I read that I really enjoyed. Top three were, the first one was, we have to say it, the Mark Carney's Davos speech, Prime Minister of Canada. I feel like that is probably the most defining speech of our generation, probably, that I've heard at least, and delivered in such a way that everyone who hasn't listened to it has to go and listen to it. Talking about more or less a world order change. Lots of things that are very relevant for us in our work, in our personal lives, but in general, what's going on in the world. So I really appreciate that you did share that. Even though it's a little bit of a political topic, that was a good one. So definitely
Yeah.
that was my favorite.
On that note, I mean, I don't want to do too much politics, obviously, on a newsletter that's focused on recruiting, but obviously, no one can ignore geopolitics now. There's another link coming in this week, which is talking about number one priority of CEOs is geopolitical risk. So all of the chaos externally has really come into our world, and there's no question, for instance, when you get all kinds of externalities happening at the geopolitical level, it has an impact on investment. It has an impact on how confident CEOs are in like extending headcount. It directly affects the jobs that we do. And in fact, I think it actually accelerates AI adoption because increasingly, adding on fixed cost on your payroll is looking like a worse and worse decision given the chaos in the world outside of our businesses. So we have to care about it. And Mark Carney, I think he broke ranks and he just described something that I think we all know is true. But the first time I've heard, let's say, a Western political leader say so, which is, the rules-based international order basically was always a little bit BS. And
well, basically, he called it. He really did call it out, didn't he?
yeah, always was
Very
BS.
eloquently, I do have to say, very eloquently called it out.
Yeah, and it's one of those where because certain countries had benefited from it, we chose not to see it. We chose not to see the injustice because we benefited from it. And I just think, wow. But probably we all need to reflect a little bit on that. And it leads us to a situation that we're in now where we've got a rampaging, sort of out of control, sort of hegemon, which everyone is kind of thinking, right, what the heck do we do here? Cartman is in charge of the White House. That's the situation.
Oh my God, I saw that comment. I've seen like these things around like, oh, anyway, we can't get into it because it'll just, we'll be here all day talking about it. But
yeah,
I think
next
we
thing.
quickly move on. The next one I thought was really interesting was the report from LinkedIn, which you highlighted, around downturn in hiring, which kind of links into what you're saying around, what's going on in the world and AI and how it's affecting hiring. I think what was interesting was that if you look into the report a bit more, it also says that although we've got like drop in hiring, there's also 1.3 million jobs being created. The challenge with those jobs is that they're creating jobs in spaces where we don't necessarily have the skill set yet. So I think it's like 3% or something have the actual capability and skill set to do the jobs that are coming up. So we have this massive challenge of we have jobs and they're available, but they're not the jobs that people are trained to do. And so how do we actually collectively upskill like the workforce across the world globally to do the new skill sets at the speed in which the skills that business need kind of change. And I think that's a really interesting topic because it does affect how we hire. And I've actually been talking to some EU leaders. I'm doing a report which will come out soon, actually, but where a lot of those talks talked about we have jobs for hire, like we need people, but we're actually not finding the skill sets and the capabilities. So it actually matches into what's like the reality of what people are actually dealing with right now. They're struggling to find the right capability set already, which is crazy that that it's already at this point.
I think it makes sense in a weird way, you know. I mean, obviously, we've had something like significant downturn in hiring folks. So this is from LinkedIn's data. Do read it, a labor market report. According to LinkedIn, they're saying of I think the G7 economies, on average, the hiring rate was 25 to 35% down compared to pre-pandemic. So have a think about that. So you got to go back compared to 2018, 2026, or 2025 was the date. It's gone down. Hiring rate's gone down like 25%. That explains a huge amount of what we're directly experiencing in the front line. But also because the world is changing so much, the jobs that companies are recruiting for are new, and they require new combination of skills or entirely new skills that no one's ever had. So
Yeah.
that creates a recruitment challenge as well.
And I think
So
that leads me into my third point, actually, which was the one on, now I don't want to say it wrong, but Soren, I think it was,
yes,
um, who's talking today actually on the topic that we've got as the main focus. There was a point also there around, something he's right, talking about around whether or not talent acquisition should, drop the acquisition and become more talent and focus on different skill sets around, capacity planning and how to kind of be part of part of that work in the future and how to be more relevant maybe and stay relevant in the changing business. I think I don't necessarily agree with that talent acquisition needs to drop the acquisition. I think that we've always had to look at, as a business, before something comes to hiring and who we hire, there's always an exercise that goes into, should we do a project, should we do something internally to change the structures, like those things should happen anyway. What we're seeing is now that we have to consider AI in the options of what should we do as a business to add capacity, but I think also more importantly as well is capability. So we've got those things still have to happen, whether or not it always happened in the past and it happens now and it's going to happen in the future. I think it's just not been done very well. So I think the positive ad or the things that are going to be more important are upstream now. So we're going to have to focus more and more on these pre-hiring plan activities, which is what are the capabilities we need? Can AI do it? What are the org structures? All these kind of things up front. And I don't believe that that task is a talent acquisition task or a talent task. I think that is a company strategic and multidiscipline task that can include, L&D, can include TA, can include lots of parts of a people function, but also leadership. So I don't know if that's the way I would go, but still it's very interesting to see that will definitely change. And I think we do that really badly right now, identifying what we actually need in the business before it comes to TA. And that's why TA have such a hard job to actually hire what people need, because it's very hard to identify sometimes what the business actually needs because that activity is done poorly. Now, before, in the future, probably as well. So that is the area I think that needs a lot of attention. I just don't know if it's the way it was presented. That's just my opinion, but I, of course, would love to hear more as well today on what he's got to say around the AI usage frameworks and stuff like that. But that was a really interesting topic for me to read through because I love all this stuff on operating model.
yeah, fantastic stuff. I totally get what you're saying as well. Like TA, maybe you don't want to drop the A entirely, but we do need to expand scope because we don't want to have to leave the room when the decision is made not to hire permanent headcount. And that's currently the situation, right? I mean, if companies are generally deciding actually the capability need can be fulfilled in some other manner, using a third-party supplier, tapping into sort of the gig marketplace, using agentic AI in some way. Do we want to still be in that conversation in the room? I think we should. I
But
think
is
it's
it TA that should be in the room, or should it be someone from the people function in general?
well, this is what I think Søren is talking about, and maybe I
Yeah.
don't want to speak ahead of him because
No, I'm excited. This is why I'm super keen for this.
yeah, and I want to actually. So my own position would be that we simply need to expand scope beyond just the
Mm.
acquisition side. I think if we stay narrow to a function that's becoming more narrow, we end up shrinking with it. That's totally okay, but that's not a policy I would necessarily endorse.
Mm.
I think TA really is a business enablement function, so our vision needs to expand to encompass that.
Mm.
I'm going to try and bring on Katerina here, by the way. However, it seems that, hang on, here we go. Because we need help. We need help to scrutinize CERN. So let's bring on Katerina here. There's so many people, by the way, on watching this live on Crowdcast that actually the search bar is freezing up on me, so I'm struggling to actually bring people on. But here we have Katerina here. Wonderful to see you, Katerina.
Hi, do you hear me? Hi.
We can hear you fine. Katerina, for the people who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yes, sure. Yeah, so I've been in TA also for a while, so over 12 years, and spent a big time of this at Zalando as recruiter and later on also as senior team lead. And since 2 years, I'm the talent acquisition head at Hey Jobs. It's a German-based or Berlin-based company, a job platform which matches talents and companies. This is me in
Yeah.
a nutshell.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining, Katerina. And yeah, really wanted to get your view as a TA person. So someone who is actually operating, managing a function right now. Søren published a really interesting post on, okay, here's how certain companies at a company-wide level implement AI. What can we learn about them? So yeah, it's us three. It's us three. So just basically trying to figure out what these frameworks look like and see how we get on with them. Okay, good stuff. Let's see whether we can bring Søren on. As there's going to be some not major presentation, but I think there's certain things maybe we want to show on screen as well. Some really good visuals also. Let me just see if I can get him, and we'll see where we go. You know what? I'm going to fail to bring him on. Søren, you could do me a massive favor if you're watching this. Can you comment on the chat so that I don't have to use the search feature, which is literally frozen on me, because I can't, because there's too many people watching here right now. Okay, cool stuff. Let's, whilst we're at with this, let me keep searching for the man.
Great that there's so many people live.
I know. I think this thing is optimized for like sub 100. So when we bust over that, which we have done, it actually is not particularly good at searching. So I've got to do a manual scroll through all the people who are live. Here we are. We've got him. Let's invite him in, and we'll see what's what.
We can see it.
Is he commented?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. No worries. I've invited you, sir, and just accept that, and we'll bring you on. Okay, folks, whilst that's happening, I just want to invite you to read or at least copy, bookmark sort of this post, because this is what stimulated everything, and it's worth us having a discussion on that, or at least reading in future for you. There he is, Søren Winther. Søren, really good to see you again. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Thanks, Ang. Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining for this topic. So great to see that there's such a big interest. So who am I? I've been talent acquisition on since nearly 20 years. Come from executive search, worked in recruitment process outsourcing, love HR technology and TA technology. Was the head of talent acquisition at Zalando, worked at Wayfair, led TA in Europe and in Asia, worked in the blockchain industry, and since 2 years, mainly as a consultant and as an executive coach, enabled and help different companies from early stage startups up to like the big man companies to optimize the hiring, the talent strategies, and also the talent acquisition strategies, and support talent acquisition leaders to step into the next level of leadership and become more strategic. So happy to be here and talk about one of the topics that comes up a lot of times.
Yeah, fantastic to have you, Søren. I don't know whether it might be your debut on Brainfood Live, but if it is, great to have you on the show. Let's talk about this topic here, the 6 AI frameworks of sort of AI usage frameworks that might apply to TA. We might need to lean on you a little bit here, Søren, for you to just take us through each of these, because I think it'll be useful for Katerina, Jesse, and myself just to hear it from your view. What are these frameworks? And then we can examine them in turn.
Absolutely. Let me just figure out how I can share the right screen. Give me a second. All right. Can you see that one?
Something is happening. I think the screen is shared, but it's blank right now.
Okay. Let me know when you can see it.
We can see black.
That's not good.
I'm not sure why that didn't work.
Okay, let me try again. Stop sharing.
Crowdcast is just breaking with so many people here.
You know what? I've had this experience once before when we actually had about 8,000 people on here, and it did actually break the entire site.
Oh my God.
But that was just a random event, like a one-off, that cost everyone, a lot of life points. But yeah, never mind. Here we go. Got
Okay.
something else? Yes, we've got a screen now, Søren.
All right, then give me a second. Then I just have to do this and hope that it works. All right. Does it load?
Yes.
We see 6 AI usage frameworks.
Nice.
Good stuff. Let's have a look at this. What are we talking about here?
Okay, so overall, like what I looked at and like what triggered this was that often in discussions we have the question of there are so many different tools and like different apps and like all these providers are trying to like pitch me different solutions. And I like a lot like the clients that I support often ask the question like how do we now go from like we don't do anything with AI to like we have the right AI model. So I had to look at like I saw this post actually from Timothy Teriyaki, and I probably butcher his name, so apologies for this. Like the link is in here, and I will share the link to the mirror later on. But it's also in the article that I wrote. When I had a look at it, when I saw like that there are different AI usage frameworks, and actually took a step back and thought about like what are these? Dove a bit deeper into those, and then I thought about the next stage is like how can I actually like, translate this into talent acquisition and make this usable? So when we look at these 6, and I'd say there's tons of like documentation, etc. around, but let me just quickly take like 5, 6 minutes to go through these and like try to explain what the differences are, because all of them kind of tackle different things, but in the end come back to like certain basics in the sense. So let's start with the like first two that are more maturity models, which is the Microsoft one and then also the Deloitte one. So the Microsoft one is like a typical AI maturity model. It looks at what is human intelligence and what is artificial machine intelligence. So like in this sense, like a capability versus intelligence side. So it starts with, it's kind of like when you think about like where are we as an organization with like a certain tool or a certain set, it's kind of like a normal maturity model where you start with assisted. So assisted intelligence means like I as a recruiter take a job description and put it on a model and like I get a feedback from it. Like I have an assistant that I can ask. It's more passive. Like that's why I added like here, like these little words. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit more. So it's very passive. The second level in the sense of maturity is augmented. So I actually have like a proactive tool that is like augmenting my work. So for example, like an AI that actually evaluating all the candidates that I have and provides me with like an overview grid of like these are the different things and feedbacks, etc., and help me make sense, but in a kind of proactive manner already. So it's augmented. So last one is then like the autonomous intelligence, where I can really say, look, like there's a level of intelligence that can actually do certain things. So for example, full sourcing, like where put in like a briefing, and this agent goes out and actually sources and like proactively approaches candidates and like has conversations and just loops me in at a later stage. So you can see this as like a step change from like an assistant to augmented to autonomous. And like we're probably at the moment all somewhere between assistant and augmented. Not many systems are actually autonomous, but like the first bots for interview scheduling, for sourcing, etc., start to move into that direction and like become more independent. So like that's a Microsoft.
Stop press, Søren. Firstly, folks, does everyone understand the Microsoft AI maturity model? I think it's probably the most simplistic one out there. So it's the most grokkable, so to say, if you're using the previous word of the term grok. But I think most of us, I'm definitely still at assisted intelligence. So I'm literally doing most of it. AI now and again is giving me some output, but that by no means have I got any autonomous AI doing anything. And I still get a little bit intimidated when there's automation going on. So when it starts like taking stuff over. So I'm definitely a laggard in this case. A quick question to the audience: Do you understand the AI maturity model, and where are you on the assisted, augmented, autonomous sort of maturity? Where are you? Are you closer to me, or are you closer to the robots? Let us know in the comments. Cool. Go ahead, Jessie.
I'm gonna add where I am publicly here. As a small business owner, I'm in the augmented space, so I try to do things. And as I moved more towards like autonomous, I get scared because it broke and it did stuff, and I was like, oh, that's really embarrassing. I've got to like I've got to like pull it back. So like I'm somewhere between the trying to go from augmented to autonomous actually to try and like really leverage it. But there is an element that is just, yeah, that either I'm lacking in skill or the tool is lacking in like its maturity to do what I needed to do autonomously. So that's what I'm finding.
Really good. Katerina, I've got to plot you on this graph as well. Where are you as the head of TA? Because it's different from an entrepreneur. You've got more responsibility. You've got loads of compliance things you've got to think about. Where would you say you're at with regards to this, if we plotted you on this chart here?
Yeah, I would also see me and my team at between assistant and augmented. So depending also on the use case. So for example, I have a project, I'm more in the augmented area, I would say, because I have an agent running, but assistant for operations for sure, yeah.
Yeah. I think most of us probably are more comfortable there. There's only a few of us that are probably in that bottom right hand side of it, and they tend to be like independent consultants in my experience, sir. But people like you, like out in the Wild West, experimenting freely, and confronting the frontier, so to say, without sort of the huge compliance sort of demands or anybody, other employees to think about and stuff like this. Where do you think the majority of businesses or TA functions are on that map in your analysis, Søren?
From my perspective, usually an assisted, but like in an assisted stage without having compliance. Why is that? Because many like we have to look at, like, let's say, this entire spectrum, right? It's like many people just like want to use AI but are not allowed to use AI from a company perspective because they're scared. So like what do? They often go to like their own ChatGPT and just like put job descriptions in, etc. So like that's like the early stage of assisted, but like not governed, without governance or without controlling from an organization. So augmented, I see when TA teams have a really good tech stack and are actively looking into experimenting and like getting more insights from the toolings that they have, or like also using things like Juicebox or others to actually like to go out there and like to get more proactive recommendations coming in. But most teams that I see are still in the assisted stage.
Yeah, and also you might naturally be pushed towards the bottom right-hand side by the tooling, right? Because all vendors are pushing agentic AI at you. So you could be the most passive person ever, but suddenly you switch on a tool that was previously, pretty much assisted, and before you know it, actually it's augmented. You play with that for 2 weeks, and before you know it, it's autonomous. So we are kind of dragged in this direction, whether you like it or not. And it'd be quite interesting to know who's able to tap the brakes on that.
And I think like just like adding to this also, like we can't forget that we are working in a part of a company that is highly like deals with people, deals with candidates, deals with people data, etc. So like we see this with lawsuits that are going on in the US with like big providers, where the tools went a bit too far already, like on the autonomous side, and like that caused challenges. And I think like that's where it's like that is one model that gives like this discussion, like this level, or encourages this level of discussion already. But like then like there are like other perspectives, so like where we can already see here is like there's no one answer to this, because probably some teams are augmented in one space but like not even assisted in another. So it's like it's also like task and tool related.
Yeah, really good. Okay, cool. Let's have a look at the next model, Søren.
Then let's look at like Deloitte. Like I would just like park PwC for a second and come back to it in a minute. So like when we look at the Deloitte, because like that's like like I would put the Deloitte one in the same bucket as Microsoft one, because it looks at like the levels of augmentation. So like automation, it looks at, on the one hand, automate, so AI takes over repetitive rule-based tasks. Then it looks at augmentation, so like in the sense AI provides recommendations or insights to enhance human decision making. And then amplifying, so AI helps humans to scale their work. improving productivity and decision making. When we look at it from a TA perspective, that will mean, for example, like the key difference here, I think like automation, everybody understands, like there are like certain repetitive tasks. Like for example, an application comes in and an application need like the different fields need to be mapped like to the ATS, like from the resume. Like that's like a very simple automation task. Augmentation is where really, let's say, quality of hire is improved. So like a recruiter has, let's say, 20 recs, and then like by augmenting with AI, it actually gets the output in the sense is improved quality of hire, but the recruiter can still mainly handle 20 recs, but like the quality is improved. What Deloitte does with this structure here, so they add amplification or the amplify area, where then like the recruiter is not only able to handle 20 recs, but maybe 50 recs with the same workload. So like why how and like that's like how they look at the, let's say, they don't just look at assisted and not and then augmented and automated, but they start with augmentation for simple tasks, then augmentation that is improving quality, and then amplification or amplify to then show like how to scale. So like this is actually a model that is usually used when it comes to like what do we want to achieve? Do we want to just simply automate a certain thing? Do we want to augment and improve quality, or do we want to amplify and actually scale output per person?
Yeah, really good. And that's actually, they're similar, as you say, but it is
Mhm.
different because Deloitte is talking. I mean, Microsoft's just talking about automation. So perhaps you have a load of
Mm.
automation, but maybe that automation doesn't output anything in terms of additional value to you. Whereas Deloitte is trying to say actually does project out. And, maybe one recruiter could go from 20 recs to 200 recs, using these AI agents and so on. So yes, very interesting. Interesting as well is Deloitte doing it. So Deloitte obviously multi. I don't know how many thousands of customers they have, but they'll be promoting this model into companies that they're obviously advising. So it has a significant cultural impact when you have a modeling like this. Good stuff.
All right, should we go to the next one? Because then we go into like a different category in this sense, which is the like I labeled them here like the autonomy grids in the sense, which is the PwC and also the Gartner one, um, which describe overall like who does what, like who's in the end like doing the job. Like so here, PwC actually says how high is the AI autonomy and how high is the role complexity or low. So like here, for example, when we see like the AI doesn't have a high autonomy, and the role is not complex, the AI usually acts as an advisor, so it provides insights and recommendations, etc. Then when we move further up, then you see that like the AI autonomy gets higher, but the role complexity stays the same. So the AI starts to be an assistant, so it helps with performing tasks. For example, it says, "Hey, like you can actually, like instead of screening all the CVs and saying, hey, by the way, like these are." The ones that you should actually have a look at, it actually already like puts the applicants in like two different buckets in the sense based on like the qualification. So it assists with making it faster, more efficient. Then like the middle here is co-creation, and then I think like what I found particularly interesting here was like the executor, where usually from my perspective, that would have been like in the top right corner where like the role complexity is high, but the AI autonomy is high. But what they've done here is it's actually put it like the executor a bit more in the area where the role complexity is not very high, but the AI can actually perform tasks with minimal human input. And then like on the top right, it really says that like AI is a self-learner. So it's not just doing the job, but it's actually getting better with every interaction, with every feedback, etc. And like what was also interesting here is that they have like a decision maker where actually like the AI is making the decision independently. Um, but is not dealing with so high complex tasks. So like these areas here for me were like the most interesting ones because it goes from like co-creation to making decisions to actually executing the task to like learning and getting better with it. And
Yeah,
then with this, like it looks a bit more on at autonomy than the other one.
I reckon the AI as executor is probably what a lot of the AI agentic sourcing solutions are suggesting. So it seems
Yeah.
to fit in that box to say, actually, you can just instruct this thing. It's going to go out there and find candidates and then score them for you, and then maybe even outreach for you. There is human input because you've got to at least calibrate, but it is fairly minimal. So I think we're already seeing some AI as executor from vendor side, which is very interesting. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what Jesse and Katerina think on this. I mean, on the toolings that you've encountered and using, I mean, what are you seeing as fitting into these boxes? Katerina, let's go to you on this. Seeing this grids, did you see any tools that you're using right now and think, okay, this fits in there?
Yeah, so mostly we are using our own ATS, so Ashby, and it's supporting us with a lot of AI features, so especially in assistance, but also in advising, so assistant matching candidates and prioritizing the good ones, because we also getting a lot of applications and we need to prove quality in the pre-screening funnel. So I think assistance, but also advising, for example, in debriefings, so we can write or get summaries after the first interviews, and then Ashby is advising us what to do, what to ask in the next interview stage. So a lot of movement also when it comes to ATS features, I would say. So it's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting, and maybe it's actually a measure of how good your ATS is. Like how many of these, where does it place on these grids and these squares? Is it actually helping you in these places? Jesse, your thoughts on this? Any tools you're using that kind of fit obviously into these squares?
I mean, maybe first a step back is like just to look at the actual framework itself. I don't know if I really like this framework. I think the wording is quite ambiguous to some degree, like helping assist humans and like helping humans perform tasks efficiently versus working collaboratively on a task. Like is it collaboratively me prompting it and it creates like a workflow for me, or is that assisting me? Like what does it actually mean? I think would be good to like know more of that before I classify. But I'm going to say that performs tasks with minimal human input on the executor part. I don't think a lot of the tools do that well. I think everyone wants to say they do, and I think they're all like, we can do it, but I think they're more actually in the assisting or the co-creating space. I think a lot of them are like, hey, I put a prompt and it says, go out and do this thing, and here's some criteria, right? And it'll do like a part of the task. Like, what does that actually mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, where does it fit in the box? So I think for me, the framework, I'm not super keen on maybe. But I think the point of all of this isn't the framework itself. It's actually like, how do you best do a task, and where does the human need to be in that task? And is it driving value for the business? I think that's the thing at the end of the day. So I find it hard to classify on this framework, actually. Sorry, that's probably not very helpful. But
yeah, not helpful at all, Jesse.
Sorry. Sorry.
No, it's great. But let's talk about role complexity. I thought that was really interesting because we had the big skills-based hiring moment, didn't we? Where it was a big movement. We need to disaggregate all jobs into tasks. They're all like a bunch of tasks, and if we do that, then internal mobility is better. But hey, isn't it the case that a job is more complex, I guess, if it has more tasks in there that then interact with other people? So in some respects, the role complexity is a description of a density of tasks within a certain job, I guess. Would that be fair? I don't even know what the question is, guys. Sorry.
Or can I add a counter? Can I add to that before you answer? I thought role complexity was about the role of the AI and how complex the AI is, how complex it is for the AI to do versus the role the person has. Like me how complex is my role versus how complex is the role the AI is taking on. I don't know. That's why I think the framework's hard to understand.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like that's where it's like from my perspective when you look at this, it's a good segue from how do we look at AI autonomy and role complexity. Like role complexity can go in like different ways, right? Like you can interpret it as how complex is the AI in delivering that role versus how complex is the role itself. And I think like that's where like you can apply it in like in different ways, but like from how I understood this model is that role complexity here is mainly how complex is the task or the set of tasks that the AI is dealing with. What does that mean? So for example, from the executor perspective to the self-learner perspective, the executor perspective is, for example, scheduling interviews. And if all candidates and hiring managers would be super fast, responsive, and reasonable in their way how they deal with the candidates' calendars and like respond to requests, the AI could do it independently, right? But like that's not the reality. So let's say hiring managers are getting important things. They reschedule things. They don't keep the calendar up to date. The life gets in the way, etc. And like with that, the task or like the complexity moves to like requiring AI as a self-learner because they need to get to know, okay, this hiring manager, this interviewer is actually handling their calendar in this way. And then like with that, they can improve over time, step by step. So like the role gets more complex with the circumstances that the AI is operating in. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
It does indeed. Folks, what do you think of this? Are you a critic of the framework? I mean, let's face it. I mean, PwC are, I guess, competing head to head with the likes of Deloitte. So, accessibility, understandability of the framework they're promoting is also a big part of it. Like, do you prefer the Deloitte simplicity compared to what PwC is looking at, which I think, in their defense, is a little bit more complex because they're putting in this idea of raw complexity, which itself is a very difficult thing to understand. But Gartner, I think, is you've compared it as a similar type of framework, Søren.
Yeah, exactly. So like Gartner in the sense like also looked at the AI autonomy. So like you can feel it on the horizontal one, and then it adds the human involvement. So like again, like when we have a look at here, like where AI autonomy and role complexity, Gartner actually looks at the human involvement and then like the AI autonomy. So like the like that's where it's a good segue of like when we talk about the MIT and the Harvard Business Review model a bit later on. So it's like where we see like high human involvement and low AI autonomy. We usually have some manual work, like the assisted work in the sense, right? Um, no, like the manual works, and we go into assisted work. So actually, the human involvement gets lower, but like the AI autonomy, like the human involvement gets lower, and the AI autonomy stays the same. So like in this sense, like the human is still in charge. Then you see the so-called semi-autonomous work, so meaning there's still a high human involvement, but there's also high AI autonomy. So AI handles a task, but humans intervene as needed. So semi-autonomous. So like which, for example, semi-autonomous would be like the AI goes through 400 applications and structure or like builds a recommendation of like this is sequencing how you should look at these applications. And then, but the human still opens up the ATS and it goes through the applications and performs the task, makes a decision. Versus on the top right, you see it's then like you have a very low human involvement and a high AI autonomy, which for me, like is then like the like makes sense to have it on the top right, where AI performs the task independently with no human input. And I think like that's where, for example, interview scheduling, right? Like if the AI can perform, hey, I sent a calendar request to the candidates, I know that I have put a blocker in for the interviewers. Candidate confirms, I can put it in a calendar. There are no obvious things. I just send out the confirmation. There will be full autonomy versus I send something out, the candidate confirms it, but like added a comment about like not sure if I can travel on these dates, then the AI like needs to go back to the human to make a judgment call. Can I put it in calendar? Can I confirm, etc. So like what Gartner does here is that they go from role complexity to when is a human involved. And I think like that's an important one to look at, especially from a talent acquisition standpoint, because we like there's always this question of when AI gets implemented, where's the human in the loop and who actually makes the decisions based on what.
Yeah, really interesting. I think, sorry, Jesse, just a quick one on this, guys. I think there's two, three things I want to talk about. Firstly, there is like almost a status hierarchy between these four squares a little bit, isn't it? I have a feeling that we all want to lean towards semi-autonomous work because it feels like that's the highest status thing to say, and that's something to look out for, because is that still the best way? Just because we're social creatures and we want to socially signal our superiority? Maybe not. Second point, this is also related very much to AI governance, isn't it? Because I think a lot of us would reflexively feel, oh, hang on, fully autonomous work, I probably don't want a lot of recruitment stuff to be featuring in that bucket there, because it feels like we've just completely have this autonomous system and human beings are being processed by robots. We kind of don't feel that's a good thing. We should pull back away from that. And the third thing I completely forgot. So let's go to Jessie with her comment on this.
Happens to the best of us, Hung. So I think now I'm not a lover of frameworks. Not that I don't love that this session is talking to frameworks, because I think there's a place for frameworks. But the reason I don't love frameworks is because I think that, especially these ones, the last two, I'm not super keen on. The simpler ones were better. Is because this is making me think about what is a task. Right. And actually, I can have a fully automated task as long as it's just to like book a meeting with Hung. That's fully autonomous. That's done. Task. It did it. End of task. It's fully autonomous. But what does fully autonomous task mean? Does it mean how many stages of a task? How many systems is it crossing? How many whatever? So I feel like then I start to define, well, what is a task and what bucket does it fit in? Which again, at the end of the day, doesn't actually matter. It's not what's important. What I think it does do, and I love the comment from Nuno here, we don't really want, I think, if we think about it logically, we don't want fully autonomous work really anywhere, I don't believe. We shouldn't be having fully autonomous anything that just goes off and does its stuff to like the nth degree in the world, right? We always want to have some form of oversight. And that's why I think what's coming next, which is the human in the loop AI model and framework around what we actually need to do is decide what, if we take everything back and we deconstruct everything that we ever thought we knew about work and how we interact with tech and people, we design process where we decide what should be done with a human touch and what shouldn't be. And then we start building, whether it's fully autonomous, automation with AI, without AI, we then design that in. And I think that's where we need to go. And the principle behind that is more like, where does the person go? So the one I think I love the most is coming next. And that's why I don't really like this Gartner one. I don't think it adds a lot of value to the conversation in general. Not that I don't love what you're presenting. That's not the case. I love the discussion, but I'm just not a fan of these like big names putting out these frameworks and people like watch them and they look at them and they look up to them and they start trying to apply them. And actually, we just have to go back to basics, I think, and the simple ones are probably the better ones. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, really good. It's aesthetically pleasing though, isn't it? I mean, if we look at it purely from a visual sort of aesthetics point of view, I think Gartner actually knocks it out of the park. Katerina, your view on this, how do you feel about it when you're presented with these options on the Gartner framework?
Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant when it comes to decision making and decision made by AI. So I'm always a fan of keeping the TA experts in the loop, especially in the decision making processes. But I think it's a great framework to reflect on this. So where do we need to stay in the loop, and where can we also automate and give it away somehow? And I know many people have big concerns on decision making processes by AI in recruiting. So it's a good framework to reflect on this, I would say. So I will look at it.
Yeah, I think again, frameworks are all tools, folks. I think we've got to pick a mix. We've got to kind of treat them not as like scripture, from the Old Testament or whatnot. But they're just like ideas that have been written down and visualized. Let's see whether they can be, and we'll talk about how they apply to TA in a bit. I know this is going to be a long session, by the way, folks. Conscious of time, but this is going to be a big chew. I think we're going to be at least another 30 minutes. Søren, let's go to the human in the loop stuff. This is your third subcategory, isn't it?
Yeah. So like overall, like that's like the let's say human-centric loops in a sense. Like when we look at MIT from my perspective approaches like with a core question, when does the human have to be in the loop and makes a decision? So like when we go through like this flow chart, it's like there's a certain input, the AI model does something with it, and then the AI generates a confidence level score. So let's say a candidate, like we have a chief financial officer role for like a Fortune 500 company to fill. So comes a candidate in, and this candidate has only worked in warehouse environments, never worked in any kind of financial job or whatever, and applies for like a chief financial officer role managing 10 billion in profits. The AI evaluates this resume and like has a confidence level of, let's say, 99.9% that this person is not suitable for the big CFO job. So the AI could make then the decision of like there's a high confidence level and then the output is I reject that person, or I put in the bucket of the recruiter should go through and like reject that person. So like there's a high confidence level, and I think like that's overall what LLMs these days do. They calculate probabilities. So like the higher the confidence level is, the higher is the possibilities that the AI actually makes a decision. When the confidence level is low, whatever that is, if you define that as 65%, 85%, 90%, 95%, whatever it is, and like it depends on like the decision that needs to be made, is like the AI automatically puts it in the human review to correct. So, and I think like that's where how we can think about, let's say, post a role like at 100 applications, the AI looks at them and says, all 100 are with 50% likelihood relevant. I go through all of these, give the AI the feedback, okay, please schedule these, please reject the others, and the AI does it. But here it's an interesting one. Like for me, the core is here like the confidence level of AI. And that's the tough part, but like it focuses very much the the work of the people that implement it on how do I define the confidence level of the AI, and what kind of decision power can I give them later on, and what kind of governance can I put on top of it to make sure that the system like learns by itself.
Yeah, this is a very different kind of model, isn't it? Because it's not plotting humans in terms of where we're at with regards to AI maturity, but really suggesting that humans need to be in, like part of the design, like significantly part of the design of any AI workflow. And here we have a system where, you know, a human being comes in basically as overseer. Very, very interesting. I want to ask the panelists to come in a second, but I want to just address the audience here just quickly. What do you think of this vibe? I mean, are we generally vibing more towards the human in the loop? I mean, I guess it's kind of a loaded question because, of course, we're humans, so we're biased on this. But it intuitively feels a little bit more comfortable rather than being plotted on a chart as just a node. A second thing I want to say is, though, AI may be highly incentivized to kind of constantly improve the confidence level of their suggestions. So it may well be that we've designed some bias in there with the AI being incentivized of getting it right. So if it starts interpreting human intervention as their error because they feel, oh, we've messed up, we need CERN or Katerina to come in, then it will obviously try and like consistently do things so that we don't come in. And I just wonder whether that may lead to unknown biases down the track. But I don't know. I'm no expert. What do we think, anybody? Jesse, go to you on this. You mentioned this is one of your faves. How do you view this with regards to how it might work in TA?
So I think it's my favorite in that it highlights the point that we need to have a confidence level to understand what like a numerical, something we can understand about the output of what the AI has done. I think it brings a lot of questions around governance and around, like someone's just mentioned, the eightfold case. You know, we do have to understand what that confidence level is based on. Like you said, is it learning? Is it trying to like please us? And at what point and what threshold do humans, you know, is it 86 and below that we check, or is it 99 and below that we check? And then if there's 5,000 roles that we're checking through and all of them have a confidence score, we're going through every single one of those to check that the confidence score is correct. So where is the threshold at which we check and agree or disagree, right? And you talk about this a little bit, Hung, is like the gut feel. Where does that come in? Can we ever override the confidence score? Can we ever override the output of AI if it's all data-based and we have to kind of like believe what it says, right? So I think that's like fundamental questions where that's where we need to put the focus, I think, a lot in every single part of AI, is that what is the confidence level? How does it come to that? And how do we regulate that and govern it? But I do like the point that we are part of the loop. We need to be part of the loop.
Can I just say one thing, Jesse? I've got just a really quite a funny test on this. Like we need to get someone who's just obnoxious to do the reviewing, like a human being who's just like, do you know what I mean? He's full of bias. Like, what does the AI do when you get a human to correct, quote unquote, but actually the corrections are incorrect? Like, what does the AI then do? Does it accept the human incorrect veto, or does it insist on it being correct? I mean, that's something I don't think we think about. Like we've presumed that the human being coming in here is actually going to be a better decision maker from the AI recommendation. Like the human being is not using any confidence level, they're just making a call. Anyway, that's a rabbit hole we can't go down right now. Katharina, your views on this human in the loop AI model. What do you think about it?
I think what plus one what Jesse already said. So I think we really need to be conscious about how we feed AI and which databases are behind. So it's really a challenge, and as you said, it's like a rabbit hole. So yeah, it's a tricky one, I would say. It's not that easy.
No, and I think all of the tools that I've seen so far, Katerina, they kind of do something similar to this, don't they? Like there's an input. Hang on, maybe that's not true. But the human calibration seems to be a very consistent feature on a lot of the AI sourcing tools I've seen. Like I've not actually seen an AI sourcing tool which doesn't have that component, where they actually present.
If we did, they might be breaking the law if they didn't. Like they definitely should have it.
Who knows what the law is these days? It's like all in the air. Okay, Søren, we have to move on real quick. Let's go to the Harvard Business Review.
All right. So the Harvard Business Review is like the human AI teaming model in the sense. Like it goes for like it puts a human in the center and actually looks at how do we collaborate, use a tool, or being managed by the tool. What does it mean? So like AI is a collaborator, I think like it's a very easy one. Like I have a job description, I send it to a chatbot, it comes back and we ping back and forth until something is like really good. Or I start a search, the AI gives me a certain, let's say, long list of candidates, I react to it, the AI goes out, like we collaborate on actually like getting something done. Second one is AI as a tool. So I get on a regular basis data-driven insights, meaning, for example, like stepping out of TA for a moment, you have an AI looking at like all the different interactions of like, for example, engagement scores overall in the company, and then says, by the way, like this team might be something that an HRBP or a TA business partner so should look at and like see like what's going on because they're not so engaged anymore or so. Like you have like different, but you get proactively information or data fed from the tool. And the last one is here probably like the most provocative, where the question is AI as a manager. And like the example that I would have for this is like here you have like in this one, scheduling and performance management. For recruiters, how would that look like? That would look like in the sense of if we have an ATS that is actually actively managing requisition distribution within the team, and then, for example, identifies, hey, somebody is like has not looked at these candidates in this bucket for 3 days, and then like proactively puts time on the calendar of the recruiter to say, hey, like I've just reserved 30 minutes of your time because you have some candidates that are stuck in the process for too long. And like that's like how it looks more like, is it just collaborator? Is it proactively feeding the human information, or is it actually steering the day to day? And I think like that's what makes this model so interesting and also like controversial. But when you look at like the ATS actually looking at the pipeline and like prioritizing the time of a recruiter, that's something that is, I think, like from an ATS provider perspective, I would say that's great. I can improve output, but like from a human perspective, do I want the ATS to tell me what I need to do at what points? Probably not. If it's a collaborator, yes. If it's a tool, yes. But like if it's a manager, no. But like that's what I like about this tool, because it prompts a conversation. Do we use it as collaborator, as a tool, or does it become a manager? And how do we deal with this friction?
Very interesting. Katerina, what are your thoughts on the ATS distributing roles to your team? Like, would you think, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how would you distribute work in your team now? I guess that's part of the role of the manager.
Yeah.
But would you accept a situation where the ATS actually does this for you? And I guess your role turns into like more of a coach or a performance coach or something? I don't know.
Sometimes I would wish for, to be honest, especially when hiring managers don't reply. So it's also about managing maybe time for hiring managers. But to be honest, when we had a high volume peak, high volume hiring, it would be nearly my task to do and to manage the time of my recruiters and hiring managers. So I could imagine in high volume recruiting, it could be interesting, but normally we are in the collaborator mode for sure. But depending on the task and the hiring volume, why not?
Yeah, I think the why not question is intriguing, isn't it? Jesse, your thoughts on this? Do you think AI's true role is to be the manager? Because let's face it, we say, oh, well, that's terrible. But let's have a think. Most people leave jobs because of bad management. I think everyone say, if I could ask the audience right now, say, okay, can you name 3 bad managers? Like instantly faces would appear. So we may not be good at this. Should the machine not do it?
So I think the AI as a manager is more about task management and oversight rather than people management. And I think people usually leave from the soft skills of a manager, the toxicness, the trust levels, the way in which they communicate, the transparency. I think there's a lot of things that people leave. It's generally from being in HR and hearing that a lot. It's generally those softer skills. I don't think work distribution, as we're talking about it here, as in like who's working on which rec, I think that's actually where AI can be really helpful. And it's not going to harm, there's no bias, we don't have to worry about bias there. It's not like, it's going to be like, oh, this person has free time, this person doesn't have enough. It's like very mathematical, it's logical. I think that's stuff that AI is good at, something that computers can do well. Like, why would that not free up my time to enable me to be a better people manager? I think that's a good use of AI. I think these are great use cases of like how you can think about like using AI as a collaborator, maybe helping you, go back and forward on research or going back and forward on, a job description thing or whatever it might be. I would say they're lower risk tasks that can be definitely automated or used with AI now in recruitment, where you don't have to necessarily go the full way to like, are we assessing and matching candidates and how is it doing this scoring? So I think there's a lot to be said for this model and how to team with AI and how to use it. So I really like that concept and this model with the humans in the loop, because the humans in the loop is the higher level, in my opinion, like overarching like mindset of how we think about approaching human to tech relationship. We always have a human. Where should that be? That's like the core. And then you look at, if you go on a deeper level, you look at how do you use that on to actually get things done. And this is like, I think you can find millions of low risk cases in every part of the business using this framework quite quickly. So that's why I like it, because it gives you that visual. So yeah, I like it, but definitely AI shouldn't be taking over the role of the people side of management. But I think where it can do well is that data calculation part.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with this, but before I do this, we are at 5. Literally, we're going to go over time. We're still going to take another 10, 15 minutes on this because there's too much juice in this conversation still to go. But whilst we're still there, I want to make sure that everyone who's enjoyed this conversation so far doesn't leave without the opportunity of continuing this conversation, even when we go off air. So the way to do this, folks, is just simply to make sure you're connected with as many people who are watching this as we can. Simple way to do this: grab your LinkedIn URL, share it in a chat stream on Crowdcast, and then just connect with everyone else who's done the same. In the same way, if you're watching this on any of the LinkedIn live streams, why don't you go ahead and grab your LinkedIn URL there and then just share it into the comment thread on whatever LinkedIn live stream you're using, and then we can then connect with everyone else who's done the same there. That way, we'll be in a situation where you walk away with, I don't know, 100 odd new connections that you could use going forward, and continue the conversation as we go off air. I have a feeling we need to do a part 2 on this, but before we go on, I want to just address 2 points on algorithmic management, because we have had a very early example of this, didn't we? Pre-ChatGPT. Do you remember when Uber, there was a kind of a semi-scandal with Uber because they algorithmically started to allocate jobs to available drivers based on previous driver behavior, and that changed sort of income levels and all the rest of it, and it looked like, oh, this is the fairest way it could be done. So it's not a human being deciding which driver does what, it's a machine, it's AI doing it. But of course, the outcomes of what happened was that it turned out that actually there was a big skew in terms of gender. Because male Uber drivers were the ones that were most likely to be given the jobs in the right density of places, and they ended up making more money per day than equivalent female drivers. And it kind of just led, okay, the outcomes of a completely ostensibly neutral way of distributing work may actually lead to these disparate outcomes, and maybe that's not something we want. So we have had some experimentation, and it hasn't necessarily gone perfectly well in those cases. And the second point I want to just float out there is I can't help thinking about personal training when I look at AI as manager. It's like I'm not getting fit. By the way, Søren, I have joined a gym. You'd be pleased to know. Søren's giving me healthcare advice because obviously he's a lot younger looking than I am. Anyway, I have joined a gym, and I can never take a human personal trainer to shout at me to do exercise. That just annoys me. But I'm using an app to help me with this, and it's much better. I find it much better to take advice and input from a non-human being. I think that's probably a personality flaw. But I can understand there's other people that might have this. So perhaps AI as a coach, I could deal with that. I think that's a possibility. Anyway, accelerate real quick to the next thing. We're not going to have chance to really talk about application TA. I think that's a part 2, to be honest. Maybe we get us four again together and do a part 2 maybe next month. Yeah, you can stop sharing, Søren. Brilliant. But whilst we're here, having discussed the frameworks, what use do you think does it have for people in TA? Like at the base level, can we just pick one of these and just map us against it, or can we use it to inform how we make vendor selections, perhaps? Like what use is these frameworks? How do we pull them out of abstraction? Jesse, let's go to you to start with.
I think frameworks are always like frameworks, right? They're an idea, they're a way to help you structure thoughts and thinking. But I think what we did here was actually we deconstructed that and decided to apply our own critical thinking on it. And I think that's the most important thing to do in any framework, and then apply it to the case you're thinking about. So think about that really like broadly. I mean, you can apply these frameworks in any case, right? But I think it's the understanding of how we need to move forward with thinking in the business. Again, it's all about, are we driving business value? Are we caring about the human side of things? And are we thinking about the compliance and governance aspects, especially in TA? So I think, like, I take frameworks with a grain of salt. I use them to inform and give me like critical thinking, like what is the word? Inspiration. But then I like having these discussions. Actually, I think these are much more useful than any of these frameworks. So I think it's a great thing to bring it forward. Sorry, and imagine that your next point of this would actually be to think about how that you can apply and do that next step, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we put a bit of distance to. So what you're saying, Jesse, is let's put a bit of distance to these frameworks. Don't be overly emotionally committed to one or the other. There's a risk of tribalization in some respects here. They're all tools to use. But yeah, maybe as a discussion point, this is really useful because then it helps sharpen your thinking. Brilliant. Yeah. Katerina, let's go to you next. What are your thoughts as a operating head of TA right now? Are any of these useful to you, or do you think actually it's just confusing, it's pointless? You're practically doing it now, so the information is to hand, closer to the work you're currently doing. How do you feel about the frameworks?
I think they are really great to reflect on where we stand right now, because we are currently discussing how to leverage our AI usage and productivity. And we have a lot of assisted AI implemented. As I said, we have our tooling and a good tech stack in general when it comes to AI. But now it's also the time to think about additional tools, additional vendors. And then it's a great point also to assess where is the human in the loop and where not. And I will use, I think, a mix. I'm not a fan of one or two. I think at the end it will be a mix, and also a great discussion opener for talking to my team and also to our executives how to implement the right use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a useful tool to basically create maybe a common language, isn't it? Because we're talking about something that is new for everyone, and who knows, people's definitions are going to be different. We even talked about task, work, jobs. I mean, all of those things mean different things to different people. So frameworks can help you share a language at least, so that you can have a sensible conversation. Søren Winther, going to you. I mean, I guess these frameworks are great because you're a consultant, aren't you? So you could be agnostic to framework and just deploy whichever one sells better. Am I being overly cynical?
Kind of. I think like the frameworks as put here correctly already is that the frameworks are for different use cases. So like when you look at, for example, like I just shared some mirror links, there's also like another framework which we haven't covered yet, where Microsoft recently put out like a very interesting framework about like how to assess and push responsible AI in an organization with like lots of insights, etc. And I think like that's where it's like when you look at this, like for this use case, there's tons of information. If you look at the question, how do you then build the human into the loop, the MIT one might be relevant. If you think about like if a tool provider is actually pitching you, this tool can actually redistribute your recs based on utilization and SLA compliance. It's like then like you can go to another tool and actually think through this. And I think like this is where it's all of these look at AI utilization and like how do we put this in like either like a let's say maturity curve or like in where's the AI involved and like how much autonomy does it have or where's how to which degree is a human in the loop and like it's more about like which what do you want to do? Do you want to like paint a picture for like a board presentation of like where are we now, where do you want to go, and like how do we then go from let's say from augmentation to amplification? Great, then use those. If you want to have a conversation about which of our workflows in talent acquisition can we actually have run fully autonomously versus where do we have to have the recruiters focusing, then use the Gartner or the PwC, whichever like makes more sense. And if you look at, okay, like just like philosophically from an organization perspective, how much should a human be involved on like which stage and how do we like create governance, then like the MIT and HBR topics are or like models are helpful. So I'm with you. I think like the frameworks are only as good as like the use case that they are used for. And that's also like why like I shared the mirror link here. Like there's also the translation into like how do you use this for TA? How can you look at like your different tasks and different toolings? But also I think like realistically is we will have quite high complexity in many areas. So like for TA, for example, we might have a different picture in the sense or like model positioning for high volume recruiting than for executive search, right? And like that's also like something where we have to take a step back and think about how is AI going, where's the situations. So like with Clawbot, right? Now technically I'm super afraid of like the massive amount of applications that Clawbot, like the AIs that everybody can run on like their own computer that are like fully autonomously controlling a computer. Like just think about like what applicants can do. Like I can have a my AI bot with my identity sending out a million applications while I'm sleeping. So it's just like if something like this starts to happen, it will happen. It's just a matter of weeks or months until these things take place. Then like we have different situations and we have to take a step back rather than like what is the challenge, which model fits, and like how does it help us to make a decision because it's multifaceted in many ways.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. So my message I'm getting from you, sir, and in fact from Jesse and from Katerina is generally speaking, frameworks are super useful to help sharpen the thinking. But we have to kind of pick and mix them, maybe tie them closer to specific use cases. Like you don't be overly committed to, oh, this is the PwC way of doing it, or this is the Deloitte way. It's like, what do you need it for in that particular moment? And does it help you think it through? Fantastic stuff. Okay, we probably do need a part 2 in this. Let me know in the comments if you want to bring this amazing panel back, and we'll go on to maybe some more practical use cases of where frameworks have translated into TA in an operational sense. Let me know in the comments if this is something you would like to see. If so, I'll get that show scheduled up ASAP. But in the meantime, let me say thank you and goodbye to our guests who I've really hung on to for way too long in the afternoon. So Jesse Schofer, thanks for joining and being a co-pilot today. Great to see you, of course. Katerina, wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining the show. Great to get your contributions from the operational perspective. And Søren, thank you very much for just spending the time and outlining your thoughts from your wonderful blog post and then taking the time to take us through it. Brilliant having that education today. Okay, that's about it, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll be leaving you right now. We're back with a double header next week. We are going to be talking about responsible AI. What does it mean for recruiters? That's on Wednesday, 12 p.m. Midday. And then on Friday, we have the state of talent intelligence in the era of AI, meaning are we getting more TI sort of across the piece? Is it diffusing into everyone so that we need less specialists? or are we still building specialist TI functions? What do you reckon? We've got a wonderful guest panelist for both of those. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Hang. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Katrina.
Bye.